Have you ever stopped to think why some people seem to walk away untouched after committing horrible acts, while others face harsh consequences for the smallest mistakes? Carl Jung uncovered something unsettling. There's a hidden force shaping our lives, one that never forgets certain offenses. No matter your wealth, status, or ability to manipulate others, there are 7 specific actions that awaken an unshakable justice that will follow you until the very end. Jung referred to this as psychic compensation, an unyielding law of balance that corrects every imbalance with surgical precision. As you hear what's coming, you might recognize these patterns in your own story or in the lives of those you know. Get ready to confront truths that could change forever the way you see justice, karma, and the true cost of your decisions. What you're about to discover may unsettle you, because these 7 unforgivable acts are far closer to your reality than you think. 1. The betrayal of sacred trust. Trust is the invisible thread that weaves the fabric of human connection. When someone places their deepest vulnerabilities in your hands, they're not just sharing information, they're offering you a piece of their soul. Jung understood that this exchange creates what he called a sacred container, a psychological space where authentic relationship can flourish. But when you shatter this container through betrayal, you unleash forces that go far beyond simple human disappointment. The person who betrays sacred trust doesn't just break a promise, they wound the very essence of human faith. Think about the friend who shares their darkest secret only to have it weaponized against them later. Consider the partner who opens their heart completely, only to discover their vulnerability was being collected like ammunition for future battles. These aren't just personal failures, they're violations of cosmic law. What makes this betrayal so unforgivable isn't the act itself, but what it destroys. When you break sacred trust, you don't just hurt one person, you damage their ability to trust again. You plant seeds of cynicism that will bloom in every future relationship they attempt. The ripple effects extend far beyond your immediate interaction, poisoning wells of connection for years to come. Jung observed that those who consistently betray trust develop what he termed a shadow compensation. Their unconscious mind begins working against them, creating situations where they themselves become victims of betrayal. It's as if the universe develops a sophisticated memory, ensuring that those who break sacred trust will eventually experience the exact pain they've inflicted on others. The most chilling aspect of this cosmic justice is its precision. The betrayer doesn't simply face random misfortune, they encounter betrayal that mirrors exactly what they've done to others. The business partner who steals ideas finds their own innovations stolen. The spouse who breaks marriage vows discovers infidelity in their next relationship. The friend who spreads secrets finds their own private matters becoming public entertainment. But the punishment goes deeper than external consequences. Those who betray sacred trust begin losing the ability to form genuine connections. They become prisoners of their own paranoia, constantly suspecting others of the same treachery they've committed. Their relationships become shallow performances because they can no longer access the vulnerability required for authentic intimacy. The betrayer's inner world becomes a wasteland of isolation. They may accumulate money, status, even admiration, but they cannot escape the fundamental loneliness that comes from being unable to trust or be trusted. They've severed themselves from the very thing that makes us human, our capacity for deep, meaningful connection with others. What's particularly haunting is how this pattern perpetuates itself. Children who witness the betrayal of sacred trust learn that vulnerability is dangerous and loyalty is foolish. They grow up either becoming betrayers themselves or developing such rigid walls that they can never experience true intimacy. The wound spreads across generations, creating family lines marked by emotional poverty and relational dysfunction. The universe seems to have built-in mechanisms that ensure betrayers face consequences that match their crimes. They don't just lose relationships, They lose the capacity for relationship itself. They don't just face broken promises. They become unable to make or receive genuine commitments. The punishment fits the crime with an accuracy that suggests conscious design rather than random misfortune. Perhaps most unsettling is how this justice operates regardless of worldly success. You can climb every ladder, accumulate every prize, and still find yourself fundamentally alone because you've violated the sacred trust that makes connection possible. The betrayer may appear successful on the outside while living in an internal prison of their own making. Jung believed that sacred trust betrayal creates what he called soul wounds, injuries that affect not just the victim, but the perpetrator's very essence. These wounds fester in the unconscious, creating symptoms that seem unrelated to the original betrayal, but are actually the psyche's attempt to restore balance. Depression, anxiety, and a persistent sense of emptiness often plague those who have repeatedly broken sacred trust. The most profound tragedy is that once sacred trust is betrayed, it can never be fully restored. Even sincere apologies and genuine remorse cannot completely heal the wound. The betrayer must live with the knowledge that they've permanently damaged something precious and irreplaceable. This awareness becomes a constant companion, a reminder of their capacity for destruction that follows them into every future interaction. 2. The cowardly silence before injustice. There's a special place in the cosmic order for those who witness injustice and choose silence. Jung recognized that our individual psychology is deeply connected to the collective. When we fail to speak up against wrongdoing, we don't just abandon the victim, we poison our own soul and contribute to the moral decay of society itself. The person who stays silent when they could prevent harm carries a burden that goes far beyond personal guilt. They become what Jung called unconscious accomplices, participating in evil not through action, but through deliberate inaction. This silence isn't neutral. It's an active choice that empowers wrongdoers and abandons those who need protection most. Consider the co-worker who watches harassment unfold daily but says nothing to preserve their own comfort. Think about the neighbor who hears domestic violence through thin walls but chooses not to get involved. Remember the bystander who witnesses bullying but walks away to avoid confrontation. These aren't just moral failures, they're violations of our fundamental human duty to protect one another. What makes this silence so unforgivable is its selfishness. The person who stays quiet isn't protecting themselves from genuine danger. They're prioritizing their comfort over someone else's suffering. They calculate that their convenience matters more than another person's pain, dignity, or even survival. This calculation reveals a profound moral bankruptcy that the universe seems determined to correct. Jung observed that those who consistently choose cowardly silence develop what he termed complicity syndrome. Their unconscious mind begins creating situations where they themselves become victims of the same indifference they've shown others. They find themselves crying out for help in circumstances where others could intervene, and discovering that those others make the same selfish calculations they once made. The cosmic justice that follows cowardly silence is particularly cruel because it strips away the very thing the person was trying to protect, their security. The employee who stays silent about workplace abuse finds themselves becoming targets of the same abuse. The community member who ignores injustice discovers that injustice eventually reaches their own doorstep. The person who refuses to be their brother's keeper learns that no one will be their keeper either. But the punishment extends beyond external circumstances into the realm of psychological torment. Those who choose silence over courage find themselves haunted by the voices they fail to raise. Every quiet moment becomes filled with the echoes of words they should have spoken, actions they should have taken, stands they should have made. Sleep becomes elusive, as their unconscious replays scenarios where their intervention could have changed everything. The silent observer develops a peculiar form of self-hatred that Jung called moral cowardice syndrome. They lose respect for themselves, knowing they possess the capacity to help but lack the courage to act. This self-contempt colors every aspect of their experience, making them feel unworthy of the good things that come their way and helpless in the face of challenges that require moral strength. What's particularly devastating is how this pattern creates cycles of victimization. When good people consistently choose silence, evil people feel emboldened to act more brazenly. Communities where cowardly silence is the norm become breeding grounds for increasingly severe forms of injustice. The person who stays quiet thinking they're protecting themselves actually creates conditions where greater harm becomes inevitable. The universe seems to have a particular intolerance for those who possess the power to help, but choose not to use it. Unlike those who commit direct evil, the cowardly silent often have good hearts and noble intentions, making their failure to act even more tragic and their eventual punishment more severe. They know better but do nothing, and that knowledge becomes a constant source of inner torment. Children who grow up witnessing adults choose silence over justice learn that moral courage is optional and that protecting others isn't their responsibility. They inherit a world where bystander syndrome is normalized and where the strong are free to prey on the weak because the potentially powerful choose powerlessness. This generational transmission of cowardice creates societies where injustice flourishes unchecked. The most haunting aspect of cosmic justice for cowardly silence is its precision in targeting the exact thing the person was trying to preserve. Those who stay quiet to protect their reputation find their reputation destroyed by association with evil they could have opposed. Those who remain silent to maintain relationships discover that their relationships become poisoned by unspoken truths and unaddressed wrongs. Jung believed that cowardly silence creates what he called moral debt, an obligation to the universe that can never be fully repaid. Every moment of silence in the face of injustice adds to this debt, creating a psychological burden that grows heavier with time. Eventually, the weight becomes unbearable, manifesting as depression, anxiety, and a persistent sense that life lacks meaning and purpose. By the way, if you're curious to go even deeper and integrate your shadows and light, check out the Sim Method ebook. It's a concise guide that can help you unlock your inner power in just 5 minutes a day. The link is in the first pinned comment below. 3. The exploitation of innocence. There exists no greater violation of cosmic law than the deliberate exploitation of innocence. When someone uses another person's purity, naivety, or genuine goodness for selfish gain, they cross a line that awakens the most unforgiving aspects of universal justice. Jung understood that innocence represents humanity's connection to the divine. When we corrupt it, we assault the sacred itself. The exploiter of innocence doesn't simply take advantage of someone's weakness. They weaponize their victim's greatest strength. They turn trust into vulnerability, love into manipulation, and hope into a trap. This isn't random cruelty. It's calculated destruction of the very qualities that make human connection possible. The person who does this doesn't just commit a crime. They declare war on goodness itself. Think about the predator who befriends lonely elderly people, slowly gaining their trust before draining their life savings. Consider the manipulator who targets kind-hearted individuals, using their compassion to create emotional dependency before demanding increasingly unreasonable sacrifices. Remember the con artist who seeks out hopeful dreamers, promising to help them achieve their goals while secretly planning to steal everything they have. What makes exploitation of innocence so unforgivable isn't just the immediate harm. It's the permanent damage to the victim's capacity for trust and joy. When you exploit someone's innocence, you don't just steal their money or time. You steal their ability to believe in human goodness. You transform their natural openness into suspicious guardedness, their spontaneous love into calculated caution. The cosmic response to this violation is swift and merciless. Those who exploit innocence find themselves becoming victims of increasingly sophisticated forms of exploitation. They attract manipulators who are even more skilled than they are, people who see through their facades and target their own hidden vulnerabilities. The hunter becomes the hunted in a cycle that seems designed to teach them exactly what their victims experienced. But the punishment goes far beyond external consequences. Exploiters of innocence develop what Jung called soul sickness, a condition where their own capacity for genuine feeling begins to wither. They become unable to experience authentic emotions, trapped in a world of calculated responses and strategic behaviors. Every interaction becomes a performance because they've forgotten how to simply be human. The most chilling aspect of this cosmic justice is how it strips away the exploiter's ability to recognize or receive genuine love. Having spent so much time manipulating others' feelings, they lose the capacity to trust that anyone could care for them without ulterior motives. They become prisoners of their own cynicism, unable to distinguish between authentic affection and calculated manipulation because they've forgotten the difference themselves. Children who witness the exploitation of innocence learn that kindness is weakness and that trust is foolish. They grow up either becoming exploiters themselves or developing such rigid emotional armor that they can never experience the vulnerability required for deep connection. The damage spreads across generations, creating family lines marked by emotional poverty and relational dysfunction. The universe seems particularly vengeful toward those who corrupt innocence because they're attacking the very foundation of human society. When innocent people can't trust, communities break down. When good-hearted individuals become cynical, the social fabric tears. The person who exploits innocence isn't just harming individuals, they're contributing to the moral decay of civilization itself. What's most disturbing is how this pattern escalates over time. Those who successfully exploit innocence once find it easier to do again. Each victory over goodness makes them bolder, more sophisticated in their methods, more willing to target increasingly vulnerable victims. They develop what Jung called predatory adaptation, a psychological evolution that makes them more effective at causing harm. The cosmic justice that follows seems designed to reverse this process entirely. Exploiters find themselves in situations where their own innocence, what little remains, becomes the target of others' manipulation. They experience firsthand the confusion, betrayal, and despair they've inflicted on others. The learning curve is steep and merciless. Perhaps most tragic is how this violation creates victims who may become exploiters themselves. When innocence is repeatedly betrayed, some people conclude that exploitation is simply how the world works. They decide that since they've been hurt, they have the right to hurt others. This creates cycles of abuse that can span generations, communities, and even entire cultures. Jung believed that exploiting innocence creates what he called karmic debt, an obligation to the universe that demands repayment in kind. The exploiter doesn't just face random misfortune. They encounter situations specifically designed to teach them the exact lessons their victims learned. The precision is uncanny, as if conscious intelligence is crafting each consequence to match each crime. 4. The theft of others' dreams. Among the most heinous violations of cosmic law is the deliberate destruction of another person's hopes and aspirations. When someone crushes another's dreams, not through honest competition, but through sabotage, manipulation, or calculated cruelty, They attack something more precious than material possessions. They assault the human spirit itself. Jung recognized that our dreams represent our connection to possibility, our bridge between current reality and potential future. The dream thief operates through various methods, but their goal remains constant: to ensure that others cannot achieve what they themselves have failed to accomplish or cannot bear to see others possess. They spread discouragement disguised as realism, create obstacles disguised as helpful advice, and plant seeds of self-doubt disguised as concern. Their weapon isn't direct confrontation, but psychological warfare designed to make victims defeat themselves. Consider the family member who consistently undermines a young person's artistic ambitions, claiming they're being practical while actually fearing that success might make their own failures more visible. Think about the colleague who sabotages others' projects not to advance their own career, but simply to prevent anyone else from advancing theirs. Remember the friend who offers support with one hand while secretly working to ensure failure with the other. What makes dream theft so unforgivable is its assault on hope itself. When you destroy someone's dreams, you don't just prevent them from achieving specific goals. You damage their ability to believe that positive change is possible. You transform natural optimism into learned helplessness, turning dreamers into cynics who warn others against the very aspirations they once cherished. The cosmic response to dream theft is particularly creative in its cruelty. Those who steal dreams find their own aspirations withering in ways that seem inexplicable. Opportunities that should materialize mysteriously evaporate. Projects that should succeed face unexpected obstacles. Support that should appear remains conspicuously absent. It's as if the universe develops selective blindness to their needs and ambitions, but the punishment extends beyond blocked opportunities into the realm of internal torment. Dream thieves develop what Jung called aspiration paralysis, an inability to form genuine goals or feel authentic excitement about possibilities. Having spent so much energy destroying others' hopes, they lose access to their own. They become emotionally flat, unable to experience the joy that comes from pursuing meaningful objectives. The most devastating aspect of this cosmic justice is how it creates a life devoid of inspiration. Those who steal dreams find themselves trapped in grey existences where nothing seems worth pursuing. They wake each day to routines that feel meaningless, surrounded by achievements that provide no satisfaction. They've hollowed out their own capacity for enthusiasm by attacking it in others. What's particularly tragic is how dream theft often stems from the thief's own crushed aspirations. People whose dreams were destroyed sometimes become destroyers themselves, creating cycles of discouragement that span generations. Parents who gave up on their goals convinced children to be realistic. Teachers who abandoned their passions discourage students from pursuing theirs. The wounded become wounders, spreading the infection of lost hope. The universe seems to have a special intolerance for those who attack hope, because hope is what drives human progress. When dreamers stop dreaming, society stagnates. When visionaries are silenced, innovation dies. The person who steals dreams isn't just harming individuals, they're contributing to collective regression and spiritual decay. Children who witness dream theft learn that ambitions are dangerous and that it's safer to expect nothing than to risk disappointment. They inherit a world where mediocrity is celebrated and excellence is suspect. This generational transmission of lowered expectations creates societies where human potential remains systematically unrealized. Jung observed that dream thieves often face what he called achievement hollow syndrome. Even when they do succeed at something, the victory feels empty because they've lost the capacity to genuinely celebrate accomplishment. Having destroyed so many others' moments of triumph, they find their own triumphs meaningless and unsatisfying. The cosmic justice for dream theft seems designed to teach empathy through experience. Those who have crushed others' hopes find themselves in situations where their own deepest desires are systematically frustrated by forces beyond their control. They learn what it feels like to see possibilities slip away, to watch doors close just as they approach them, to experience the unique agony of deferred dreams. What makes this punishment so precise is how it targets not just any dreams, but the specific types of dreams the person destroyed in others. The boss who crushed employees' creative ambitions finds their own creative projects failing. The parent who discouraged children's independence struggles with their own autonomy. The friend who sabotaged romantic relationships faces persistent loneliness despite efforts to connect. Perhaps most haunting is how dream theft creates victims who may lose the ability to dream at all. When hopes are repeatedly crushed, some people develop protective cynicism that shields them from disappointment but also from inspiration. They survive by expecting nothing, but in doing so, they cease to truly live. The dream thief doesn't just steal specific aspirations, they can steal the very capacity to aspire. 5. The poisonous lie that destroys reputations. Among all the weapons in the human arsenal of cruelty, few are as devastating or as unforgivable as the calculated lie designed to destroy another person's reputation. When someone deliberately spreads false information to damage how others perceive their victim, they're not just attacking that person's current relationships, they're sabotaging their entire future. Jung understood that reputation is the social currency that allows us to function in community, and those who counterfeit this currency commit one of the gravest sins against human connection. The reputation destroyer operates like a skilled assassin, knowing exactly where to strike for maximum damage. They don't spread random lies, they craft specific falsehoods designed to attack their victims' most valued qualities. They poison the well of public opinion with surgical precision, targeting the exact attributes that make their victims successful, loved, or respected. This isn't emotional outburst, it's premeditated character murder. What makes reputation destruction so heinous is its permanence. Physical wounds heal, financial losses can be recovered, but a destroyed reputation follows its victim like a shadow. Once poisonous lies take root in people's minds, they become nearly impossible to remove completely. The victim faces a lifetime of whispered doubts, subtle rejections, and opportunities that mysteriously disappear without explanation. The cosmic response to reputation destruction is particularly ruthless because it attacks the destroyer's credibility from multiple angles simultaneously. Those who spread poisonous lies find their own words losing power and impact. People stop believing them, even when they're telling the truth. Their opinions carry less weight, their recommendations fall on deaf ears, and their attempts at persuasion consistently fail. But the punishment goes much deeper than simple loss of credibility. Reputation destroyers develop what Jung called truth paralysis, an inability to speak authentically because they've become so accustomed to manipulation and deception. They lose touch with their own genuine thoughts and feelings, trapped in webs of lies they've woven around themselves. Every conversation becomes a performance because they've forgotten how to simply tell the truth. The most chilling aspect of cosmic justice for reputation destruction is how it isolates the perpetrator in ways that mirror their victim's experience. The person who destroyed another's social standing finds themselves gradually excluded from social circles. Friends become distant, colleagues grow cold, and invitations stop arriving. They experience firsthand the social death they inflicted on others. What's particularly devastating is how this pattern creates cascading effects across the destroyer's entire social network. People who witness reputation destruction learn to be cautious around the perpetrator, wondering if they might be next. Trust erodes not just between the destroyer and their victim, but between the destroyer and everyone who knows what they're capable of doing. The universe seems to have a special hatred for those who attack reputation because credibility is the foundation of civilized society. When people can't trust each other's word, contracts become meaningless, relationships become impossible, and communities collapse into suspicion and paranoia. The reputation destroyer isn't just harming individuals, they're attacking the very basis of human cooperation. Children who witness reputation destruction learn that words can be weapons and that social connection is fragile and dangerous. They grow up either becoming destroyers themselves or developing such rigid social defenses that they can never experience authentic community. The damage spreads across generations, creating family lines marked by isolation and mistrust. Jung observed that those who destroy reputations often face what he called credibility bankruptcy, a condition where their ability to influence others completely evaporates. Even their closest family members begin questioning their version of events. Their attempts to share genuine concerns are dismissed as more manipulation. They become like the boy who cried wolf, unable to get help even when they desperately need it. The cosmic justice seems designed to teach the destroyer exactly what their victim experienced. They find themselves facing false accusations that they cannot disprove. They watch helplessly as their own reputation crumbles under the weight of lies and misunderstandings. The precision is uncanny. They experience not just any reputation damage, but the specific type of character assassination they once employed against others. What makes this punishment so effective is how it strips away the destroyer's power to harm others in the same way again. Once their credibility is gone, their attempts at reputation destruction backfire. People see through their tactics, recognize their patterns, and automatically dismiss their accusations. They become powerless to inflict the same damage they once caused with ease. Perhaps most tragic is how reputation destruction often stems from the destroyer's own damaged reputation or deep insecurity about their social standing. People who feel vulnerable about how others perceive them sometimes try to tear down competitors to elevate themselves by comparison. This creates cycles of character assassination that can consume entire communities in suspicion and conflict. The most haunting aspect of this cosmic justice is how it affects the destroyer's relationship with truth itself. Having spent so much time crafting lies, they lose the ability to distinguish between what actually happened and what they wished had happened. They become trapped in alternate realities of their own creation, unable to navigate back to simple honesty even when they desperately want to. 6. The venomous ingratitude. There exists a special category of cosmic crime reserved for those who respond to kindness with cruelty, who repay generosity with betrayal, who bite the very hand that feeds them. Jung recognized that ingratitude isn't merely poor manners, it's a violation of the fundamental reciprocity that makes human society possible. When someone receives help, support, or love and responds with deliberate harm to their benefactor, they commit one of the most unforgivable sins against the natural order. The venomously ungrateful operate through a twisted logic that transforms every act of kindness into an opportunity for exploitation. They don't just fail to appreciate help, they see generosity as weakness to be punished and kindness as vulnerability to be attacked. They calculate that those who have helped them will be least likely to defend themselves against betrayal because of their emotional investment in the relationship. Consider the employee who builds their career on a mentor's guidance and support, only to publicly humiliate that mentor to advance their own position. Think about the family member who receives years of financial and emotional support during difficult times, then spreads vicious lies about their benefactors when asked to show some independence. Remember the friend who is saved from disaster by someone's intervention, then works to destroy that person's reputation out of resentment for being helped. What makes venomous ingratitude so unforgivable is how it attacks the very mechanism that allows human communities to function. When kindness is punished rather than rewarded, good people stop being good. When generosity leads to betrayal, generous people become cautious and self-protective. The ungrateful don't just harm their benefactors, they poison the well of human kindness for everyone. The cosmic response to venomous ingratitude is swift and comprehensive. Those who bite the hand that feeds them find themselves facing starvation of every kind, emotional, financial, social, and spiritual. Help stops appearing when they need it most. Support evaporates during their darkest hours. The universe seems to develop selective blindness to their suffering, leaving them to face life's challenges completely alone. But the punishment extends beyond simple isolation into the realm of psychological torment. The venomously ungrateful develop what Jung called benefactor syndrome, a condition where they become unable to receive genuine help even when it's offered. They suspect ulterior motives in every act of kindness, search for hidden agendas in every gesture of support, and reject assistance that could genuinely improve their lives. The most devastating aspect of this cosmic justice is how it creates a prison of suspicion and paranoia. Having betrayed those who helped them, the ungrateful assume that everyone else operates the same way. They become unable to trust genuine offers of assistance, convinced that all help comes with strings attached. They trap themselves in cycles of isolation and struggle that could be easily broken if they could accept support. What's particularly tragic is how venomous ingratitude often stems from the recipient's shame about needing help in the first place. Some people find dependency so humiliating that they attack their benefactors as a way of psychologically rejecting the help they received. They create elaborate justifications for why their benefactors deserved punishment, transforming their gratitude into resentment through mental gymnastics. The universe seems to have a particular intolerance for ingratitude because it breaks the chain of human connection that allows love and support to flow through communities. When people are punished for being kind, they stop being kind. When generosity leads to betrayal, it encourages selfishness. The ungrateful person doesn't just harm individuals, they contribute to the breakdown of social bonds that keep civilization functioning. Children who witness venomous ingratitude learn that helping others is dangerous and that kindness makes you vulnerable to attack. They grow up either becoming ungrateful themselves or becoming so afraid of being bitten that they withdraw their natural impulse to help others. The damage spreads across generations, creating families and communities where mutual support becomes rare and suspicious. Jung observed that the venomously ungrateful often face what he called assistance paralysis, situations where they desperately need help but find themselves unable to ask for or receive it. Their past betrayals have burned so many bridges that no one trusts them enough to offer genuine support. They become trapped in problems that could be easily solved if they had maintained relationships with people who cared about them. The cosmic justice seems designed to teach the ungrateful exactly what their benefactors experienced when kindness was repaid with cruelty. They find themselves in situations where they extend help to others only to be betrayed in return. They experience firsthand the shock, disappointment, and profound sadness that comes from having good intentions twisted into weapons against them. What makes this punishment so precise is how it targets the specific type of help the person rejected or betrayed. Those who were ungrateful for emotional support find themselves emotionally abandoned in their hour of need. Those who bit the hand that fed them financially discover that money becomes mysteriously scarce when they need it most. The cosmic justice mirrors their crime with perfect accuracy, Perhaps most haunting is how venomous ingratitude creates benefactors who may lose their natural impulse to help others. When kindness is consistently punished, even the most generous people begin to protect themselves by becoming more selective about whom they help. The ungrateful person doesn't just destroy their own support network, they contribute to making the world a less compassionate place for everyone. 7. The abandonment in the hour of greatest need. Perhaps the most unforgivable sin against human connection is abandoning someone when they need you most. When a person faces their darkest hour and reaches out to those they trusted, only to find empty spaces where support should be, something breaks in the fabric of their faith in humanity. Jung understood that these moments of absolute need reveal the true character of relationships, and those who flee when their presence matters most commit a violation that awakens the most unforgiving aspects of cosmic justice. The abandoner calculates that staying would be inconvenient, uncomfortable, or costly. They weigh their temporary discomfort against another person's survival and choose themselves. This isn't random selfishness. It's a deliberate decision to prioritize personal comfort over someone else's fundamental need for human connection during crisis. What makes this abandonment unforgivable is its timing. Anyone can fail during ordinary moments, but to disappear when someone is drowning, emotionally, spiritually, or literally, reveals a coldness that violates the basic bonds of human community. The abandoner doesn't just refuse help, they withdraw the very presence that makes survival possible. The cosmic response is brutal in its precision. Those who abandon others in crisis find themselves facing their own dark nights of the soul, completely alone. When their world collapses, when illness strikes, when tragedy befalls them, they discover that help is nowhere to be found. The people they could have counted on are mysteriously absent, busy, or suddenly unreachable. But the punishment goes deeper than external isolation. Abandoners develop what Jung called crisis paralysis, an inability to handle their own emergencies because they've never learned to be present for difficulty. Having always fled from others' pain, they have no skills for processing their own. They become overwhelmed by challenges that others navigate with community support. The universe seems particularly vengeful toward abandoners because they attack hope itself. When someone in crisis reaches out and finds nothing, they learn that human connection is an illusion. This lesson spreads like poison, making them less likely to offer help to others and more likely to expect abandonment in future difficulties. Children who witness abandonment during family crises learn that love is conditional and that loyalty evaporates when tested. They grow up unable to rely on others and unwilling to be relied upon, creating generations of people who are fundamentally alone, even when surrounded by others. The cosmic justice for abandonment is perfectly calibrated. Those who leave others to face death, divorce, illness, or tragedy alone find themselves abandoned during their own most vulnerable moments. They experience the terror of calling out and hearing only silence, of reaching for hands that aren't there. What's most chilling is how this creates cycles of abandonment. People who are left alone during crisis often become abandoners themselves, deciding that since no one was there for them, they owe nothing to others. The pattern spreads through families and communities like a contagion of isolation. Jung believed that abandonment during crisis creates what he called presence debt, an obligation that follows the abandoner until they experience the exact loneliness they inflicted. The universe ensures that those who withdrew when their presence was life or death will face their own moments of desperate need with no one to call. The 7 unforgivable acts reveal a haunting truth. The universe keeps perfect records, and every wound you inflict on another's soul becomes a blueprint for your own inevitable suffering, making you both the architect of others' pain and the unwitting designer of your own cosmic prison.